After the Shibuya incident and the death of numerous sorcerers, Yuji Itadori decides not to return to the Jujutsu school and to devote himself solely to eliminating the curses that were left loose across Japan. However, his situation is critical, as he has been sentenced to death and is now being hunted by Yuta Okotsu, a special-grade sorcerer tasked with executing him in order to contain the danger posed by Sukuna. Before delving deeper into this conflict, the story rewinds a few hours to show the internal chaos within the Zenin clan. Within the clan, the death of Nayobito Zenin is confirmed, triggering a dispute over succession. Ogi, Junichi, and Naoya inherit part of the power, but the will reveals an old agreement between Nayobito and Toji Fushiguro. If something were to happen to Gojo, Megumi Fushiguro would become the head of the clan. While Ogi and Junichi reluctantly accept this outcome, Naoya explodes in fury and decides to kill Megumi in order to claim all the power for himself. Returning to Itadori, he is shown to be emotionally devastated by the deaths in Shibuya, feeling personally responsible for the tragedy. Although his body is recovering thanks to Sukuna, his mind is on the verge of collapse. Choso, who now recognizes Itadori as his brother, stays by his side and supports him, assuring him that he is not responsible for the deaths of his other brothers. Even so, Itadori continues fighting curses as his only way to atone for his guilt, accompanied by Choso, with whom he demonstrates excellent coordination in battle. After defeating several curses, the two are interrupted by Naoya Zenin, who is searching for Megumi with the clear intention of killing him. Itadori tries to confront him, but Naoya proves to possess overwhelming speed and physical abilities. The tension escalates with the arrival of Yuta Okotsu, whose presence alone exudes terrifying power. Naoya withdraws, satisfied, leaving Itadori's execution in Yuta's hands while he pursues Megumi. Itadori fights against Yuta, but is completely outmatched by his immense power and the support of the spirit Rika, who enables Yuta to pierce Itadori's heart. Meanwhile, Choso battles Naoya, and using a new technique that floods the battlefield with blood, manages to defeat him. Just as Choso is about to finish him off, Yuta appears and knocks Choso out, then heals Naoya in exchange for having him report that Itadori is dead. Itadori awakens, alive, and Yuta reveals that Gojo asked him to protect Itadori if anything were to happen. Although he carried out the execution order, he revived him using reverse curse technique. Megumi was also aware of the plan and supports the idea that Itadori should not be condemned for a power he never chose. Even so, Itadori continues to distance himself out of fear of Sukuna until Megumi asks him to face what lies ahead together, freeing Gojo from the prison realm, uncovering Noritoshi Kamo's plans, and stopping them. Along this journey, Itadori learns of Nobara Kugisaki's officially confirmed death during the Shibuya incident. Later, he reunites with Maki Zenin, who survived her injuries, and with Yuki Tsukumo, who also joins the plan. Finally, the group crosses the barriers to reach Tengen, where a mysterious being is already waiting for them, fully aware that Itadori is the vessel of Sukuna.
The encounter with the mysterious entity reveals that it is Tengen, although his current appearance makes him seem like a being detached from human reality. Without wasting time, the sorcerers ask him about Kenjaku's true intentions and the possibility of opening the prison realm. Tengen explains that Kenjaku's ultimate goal is to force the evolution of humanity through cursed energy, although this plan cannot be carried out immediately due to the current lack of sufficient cursed energy. As a preliminary step, Kenjaku plans to merge all of humanity with Tengen himself, who, after evolving without a vessel, developed a consciousness that extends across the entire planet. This condition makes a global fusion possible, but it would also mean the end of the world, as millions of people would gain immense power that would inevitably lead to corruption, chaos, wars, and the extinction of all life. Although Tengen opposes this plan, he admits that his evolution has transformed him into a being similar to a cursed spirit, causing him to lose his human body. This makes him vulnerable to curse manipulation, meaning his capture by Kenjaku is only a matter of time. To delay this outcome, Tengen proposes sealing his sanctuary and assigning bodyguards, though he acknowledges that with the Six Eyes user sealed, there is no longer a true obstacle standing in Kenjaku's way. Even so, the plan requires a preliminary phase known as the culling game, a survival ritual in which hundreds of sorcerers fight under strict rules and a point-based system designed to optimize cursed energy. The outcome of the game could lead either to a new era of enlightenment or to the total expansion of evil. Faced with this threat, Choso and Yuki Tsukumo decide to remain with Tengen to protect him, while Itadori's group takes responsibility for directly intervening in the ritual. Tengen also shares key information about the reversible prison realm, which could be opened using tools capable of nullifying cursed energy. However, these weapons were destroyed by Gojo in the past. As a possible alternative, Tengen mentions a sorceress known as Angel, whose technique can extinguish any ability other than her own. Her participation in the culling game makes her a crucial key to freeing Gojo. With the rules, colonies, and responsibilities defined, the sorcerers prepare to take action and prevent the world from falling into absolute chaos. With preparations underway for an impending decisive battle, the story returns to the Zenin clan, where Naoya Zenin openly opposes Megumi Fushijuro's recent rise to leadership. His contempt also targets Maki Zenin, whom he deems inferior due to her inability to use cursed energy and her weakened physical state. Although Megumi now has the authority to appoint Maki as clan head, this shift in power sparks fierce resistance. Naoya and Junichi Zenin secretly conspire to stage an accidental execution to eliminate both Megumi and Maki. The conflict escalates with the arrival of Ogi Zenin, Maki's father, who decides to purify the bloodline after deeming his daughter's failures. His resentment stems not only from their lack of cursed energy mastery, but also from his own frustration at never being chosen as clan leader. Acting without mercy, Ogi throws Maki and her twin sister Mai, both gravely injured, into a punishment chamber filled with curses, convinced they will perish. When all seems lost, Mai uses her final strength and her construction technique to forge a sword imbued with cursed energy. This sacrifice gives Maki a chance to survive, but costs Mai her life. With her dying wish, Mai asks Maki to destroy the Zenin clan, blaming it for robbing them of any chance at freedom. Empowered by this sacrifice, Maki survives the curses and kills her own father. In response, the clan mobilizes to stop her. The first to fall is the Kukuru unit, a group of disposable fighters used as expendable shock troops. Next comes the Hei group, the elite Zenin sorcerers. Yet even they are overwhelmed. Jinichi, unable to comprehend Maki's rapid evolution, is effortlessly defeated and decapitated by her sheer physical power. At last, Naoya intervenes as the clan's final line of defense. The battle reveals that Maki has fully awakened her heavenly restriction, reaching a level comparable to Toji Fushiguro. With Mai's death erasing the last trace of cursed energy from her body, Maki becomes immune to domain expansions. Using her heightened senses, she sees through Naoya's techniques and defeats him decisively. Though Maki's dying mother delivers the final blow to Naoya, Maki also kills her, completing the total annihilation of the Zenin clan and marking the fall of one of the most powerful families in the world of Jujutsu. After the massacre of the Zenin clan, the story shifts its focus to Masamichi Yaga, the sorcerer who was the first to create autonomous cursed corpses, beings with cursed energy and their own consciousness, capable of acting without external control, Panda being the prime example. Although Yaga never revealed the secret behind this technique, the higher-ups of the Jujutsu world issue an execution order against him, using Gojo Satoru's alleged betrayal as an excuse. In truth, their real objective is to force Yaga to divulge the formula to create more of these beings. The one tasked with carrying out the order is Yoshinobu Gakuganji, who leaves Yaga gravely wounded. Before dying, Yaga chooses to reveal the secret of his technique, not as an act of submission, but so that Gakuganji must bear the responsibility of that knowledge and reflect on the corruption within the Jujutsu world. The narrative then returns to Itadori and Megumi, whose mission is to locate Kinji Hikari, suspected of being connected to an underground organization known as the Fight Club. Upon arriving, they are detained, but by direct order of the leader, Itadori is allowed to participate in the tournament's main event. The plan is for Itadori to act from the inside while Megumi investigates discreetly, as any mistake could cause them to completely lose Hikari's trail. One key rule of the tournament is the ban on cursed techniques, since the audience consists of ordinary people who cannot perceive cursed energy. This forces the fighters to rely solely on physical combat. In the arena, Itadori is unexpectedly matched against Panda, who is also infiltrating the club with the same goal. Together, they stage a fake yet spectacular fight that amazes the crowd and catches Hikari's attention, leading him to plan on turning Itadori into the tournament champion purely for entertainment. Later on, Panda reveals that Hikari is controlling everything from a monitoring room protected by his ability. After defeating several opponents, Itadori finally comes face to face with Hikari. Hikari speaks about his obsession with risk, excitement, and control, making it clear that he seeks to rival or even surpass the influence of Gojo Satoru. When Itadori pretends not to know Gojo, Hikari realizes he is an infiltrator and decides to confront him directly.
While Itadori is in danger, Megumi and Panda infiltrate the club building to locate Kinji Hikari's hideout and provide him with support. However, they are discovered by Kirara, Hikari's protege, which triggers a battle on the rooftop. During the confrontation, it is revealed that Kirara's technique allows her to prevent her enemies from approaching by placing special marks linked to the Southern Cross, as well as binding objects together using cursed energy. As the fight continues, Megumi attempts to understand how Kirara's ability works, which is based on the Southern Cross constellation. Each mark represents one of its stars and establishes specific rules of attraction and repulsion. Megumi tries to reason with Kirara, explaining that they need Hikari's help to prevent the destruction of the Jujutsu world. Kirara refuses, recalling that both she and Hikari were expelled from the school after a conflict with the higher-ups, and trusting that Gojo will resolve the situation. However, upon learning that Gojo has been sealed, she refuses to believe it and resumes the battle. After analyzing the marks, Megumi discovers the existence of a hidden fifth mark that acts as a trigger capable of nullifying Kiara's technique. With Panda's help, he manages to activate it and approach her, using his own technique to counter Kiara's final attack and capture her. Despite the victory, Megumi apologizes and asks her to listen to the reasons why they need Hikari. At that moment, Itadori and Hikari emerge from the hideout. Hikari demands a demonstration of determination before offering his help, so Itadori accepts his blows without defending himself. Although he claims to have no passion and sees himself merely as a pawn meant to exercise curses, his endurance and conviction impress Hikari, who ultimately agrees to cooperate with the group. Finally, it is revealed that the culling game has officially begun following the addition of a new rule by Hajime Kashimo, allowing key information about the participants to be displayed. With the start of the game and the newly formed alliance, the future of the Jujutsu world becomes shrouded in growing and dangerous uncertainty. The episode opens with Sasaki, a friend of Yuji Itadori, waking up and hearing the voice of Kenjaku. He explains that the place where she is has been turned into one of the culling game's colonies through a barrier erected over ancient execution grounds.
Due to the rules, those who were inside from the beginning are allowed to leave only once, so Sasaki chooses to withdraw. Before letting her go, Kenjaku thanks her for being a friend to his son. After awakening outside the barrier alongside other survivors, Sasaki remembers Itadori, subtly hinting at his connection to the unfolding events. Later, the main group regathers. Kinji Hikari is shocked to learn that Satoru Gojo remains sealed, while Panda reveals the death of Principal Masamichi Yaga, a loss that deeply affects the team. Hikari agrees to help stop the culling game, but asks for their support in expanding his underground fight club business. Meanwhile, Megumi Fushiguro reveals that he has become the head of the Zenin clan, though it is later destroyed due to Maki Zenin's actions. As they plan their next move, Kogane appears to announce new rules, confirming that Itadori is officially registered as a participant, likely because of his connection to Ryomen Sukuna. Thanks to an added rule, they gain access to information about dangerous players, such as Hajime Kashimo, who has already accumulated enough points by killing numerous participants, and Hiromi Higuruma, another player with an impressive score. Their strategy is to persuade one of them to create a rule allowing point transfers between players, thus avoiding the need to kill in order to gather points, something crucial to saving their allies and eventually freeing Gojo. To carry out the plan, the group splits up and enters different colonies. However, once inside the barrier, participants are separated at random. Itadori finds himself fighting multiple opponents while searching for information, defeating them through a mix of strategy and raw strength. At the same time, Fushiguro encounters Remy, who claims to know Higuruma's location in exchange for him acting as her knight. Still, both Fushiguro and Itadori begin to suspect those trying to guide them, as each receives contradictory information, casting doubt on everyone's true intentions, and further escalating the tension within the game.
The story delves into Hiromi Higuruma's past through a flashback that reveals what his life was like before joining the culling game. He is portrayed as a brilliant lawyer, known for taking on extremely complicated cases and defending people who already seemed condemned by public opinion. One of those cases involved Keita, a young man accused of murdering a mother and her daughter. The key piece of evidence was a knife bearing traces of DNA that matched the victims, which was enough to secure his arrest and prosecution. Despite the evidence, Keita consistently maintained his innocence, claiming he had found the knife on the street and intended to hand it over to the police. Although his story sounded unconvincing, Higuruma chose to investigate further. He discovered that the young man worked without a fixed salary at an NGO that cared for the elderly, and that the place had a strict rule against calling the police in order to avoid conflicts with neighbors. That detail explained his behavior and opened up the possibility that he might truly be innocent. Convinced that there was still reasonable doubt, Higuruma continued the case, staying true to his philosophy of protecting the weak, even if it meant making enemies within the judicial system. After weeks of hard work, he succeeded in having Keita declared innocent thanks to newly uncovered evidence. However, the public reaction was negative, as many believed that a murderer had been set free due to corruption. The most devastating blow came later, when, in a subsequent appeal, the court overturned the verdict and declared Keita guilty, influenced by social pressure and the weakness of the evidence in his favor. At that moment, upon realizing the depth of corruption within the system, Higuruma awakened his cursed technique and killed the judge and the prosecutor responsible, marking the definitive turning point in his life. In the present, while Megumi falls into a trap set by Remy, Itadori manages to find Higuruma. The former lawyer appears apathetic and cynical, convinced that the game is designed so that only the strongest survive. He rejects Itadori's proposal to use his points to create a rule that would prevent unnecessary deaths, having completely lost faith in justice. Without his cooperation, Itadori has no choice but to fight him, fully aware that his 100 points make him an extremely dangerous opponent.
The battle between Hiroma Higuruma and Yuji Itadori begins when Higuruma activates his domain expansion called Deadly Sentencing. Unlike other domains, physical violence is not allowed inside it, since everything operates under a judicial system where the guilt or innocence of the accused must be determined. Within the domain appears Judgeman, a Shikigami who knows the absolute truth and acts as the judge, while Higuruma takes on the role of prosecutor. Itadori is put on trial for entering a gambling establishment when he was a minor. Higuruma explains that the accused can only choose between 3 responses: confess, deny the accusation, or remain silent. Although lying is allowed, the sorcerer receives an envelope containing evidence that can influence the final verdict. Hoping that there is no clear proof, Itadori decides to lie and claims that he only entered the place to use the bathroom. However, when Higuruma opens the envelope, he discovers a photograph showing that Itadori was not in the bathroom, which is enough to declare him guilty of trespassing. After the verdict, the domain expansion ends. Higuruma then uses his judge's gavel, which can change size to increase its destructive power. In addition, because of the sentence, Itadori temporarily loses the ability to use cursed energy. During the fight, it is explained that Higuruma does not rely solely on his technique. From a young age, he was extremely intelligent and possessed an exceptional memory, which allowed him to quickly learn the fundamentals of sorcery and master cursed energy in a short time. Thanks to these abilities, he has become recognized as a Grade 1 sorcerer and has defeated more than 20 opponents. In the middle of the battle, Itadori decides to request a new trial, something allowed by the rules of the domain. This time, he is accused of the deaths that occurred during the Shibuya incident. To Higuruma's surprise, Itadori declares himself guilty, which leads Judgeman to issue the death penalty and grant Higuruma a sword capable of killing with a single strike. However, Higuruma remembers that those deaths were caused by Ryomen Sukuna and not by Itadori. Seeing that the boy accepts blame for a crime he did not truly commit reminds him of his original ideals as a lawyer, so he cancels his domain before carrying out the execution. Moved by Itadori's honesty, Higuruma abandons the fight and adds a new rule to the game that allows players to exchange points, regaining part of his faith in justice.
While Yuji Itadori manages to carry out the initial plan, Megumi Fushiguro encounters Reggie Star, a reincarnated sorcerer participating in the culling game. Reggie tries to convince Megumi to join his group, but Megumi refuses, which immediately leads to a confrontation. Megumi manages to subdue one of Reggie's subordinates, although Reggie's group includes dangerous fighters, among them one who can turn parts of his body into explosives. During the fight, Megumi tries to save Remy, but he ends up badly injured by an explosion. When he notices that her allies do not care for her, Megumi warns her that she is on the wrong side, since to Reggie and his companions, her life has no value. At that moment, Megumi discovers that Itadori has managed to add the rule that allows players to share points, so he no longer needs to search for Hiromi Higuruma. Determined to keep fighting, Megumi faces another of Reggie's allies and, after a tough battle, defeats him brutally. After killing his opponent, he realizes he cannot hesitate, since they will need points to manipulate the rules of the game. However, the fight continues when he receives another explosive attack. Unexpectedly, a stranger intervenes and takes the explosion. Fumihiko Takaba, an eccentric man who claims he joined the fight because he believes it is unfair for a battle to be uneven. Although his behavior is strange, he proves to possess enormous cursed energy and manages to send Hazunoki Iori flying, even surprising Reggie. Seeing that Takaba can face Hazunoki, Megumi decides to chase Reggie in order to defeat him and take his points. However, Reggie proves to be extremely slippery, using his cursed technique to materialize objects from receipts and constantly escape.
Over time, he realizes that Megumi has spent too much cursed energy using his Shikigami, so the chase reverses, and Reggie begins hunting him. Megumi then lures Reggie onto a basketball court to limit the space and prevent him from summoning large objects. Even so, Reggie manages to attack him with several materialized objects, leaving Megumi badly wounded and losing a great deal of blood. Convinced that the battle is already decided, Reggie prepares to take Megumi's points. However, what he did not expect was that Megumi had planned everything from the start. Taking advantage of the confined space of the court, Megumi finally activates his domain expansion, Chimera Shadow Garden.